Well, here goes the reaction. I have to admit something. It was a bit better. It wasn't that hard either. At least it wasn't something that made you cringe, like what happened at the press conference. And it's a shame because, as I mentioned in other videos, he did say some truth, but the presentation wasn't good. The length, well, everything I've already said, right? The papers, the microphone, everything. But it's true that with Pedrerol, he was a little bit better. Now, from there to saying I did well, and why does he say I did well, right? That's what he told Pedrerol, and that he got congratulatory messages. Well, I don't doubt the congratulatory messages because he always has a group of flatterers, people who, well, advise him. Honestly, they don't advise him. Otherwise, they would have told him that yesterday's issue should have been settled in 5 minutes or with a statement and leave it at that. But instead, no. And I think that doesn't do Florentino any good, who, by the way, is one of the brightest minds and one of the most brilliant businessmen in history and one of the best sports managers in history. The best in Spanish football, definitely, in history. I mean, that's always got to be said first. Another thing is how Florentino is doing now. He's had some comments that, and by the way, I don't see him, sorry for the interruption, I don't see him doing that well. Not as senile as some people want us to believe, because I don't see him that bad in that sense. It's true that, as Colin said yesterday, he's a bit senile. Well, yeah, damn, he's the age he is, and I don't think he's ready. About today's interview, it's true that having an interviewer who guides you and say what you want about Pedrerol, you know I have no appreciation for this guy, but it's true that he's a good interviewer. He pressed him a bit there. At some point, he missed something, which I'll tell you right away what I think he should have said. Maybe he didn't ask so he wouldn't be too hard on him about the Negreira issue. When he called the Negreira case disgraceful, the answer was obvious, but Pedrerol didn't do it. But having someone to talk to, I think it has helped Florentino. It has helped him to, para empezar, well, just have someone support him, right? Make it more of a dialogue. Engaging him in dialogue and avoiding Florentino's mistake of repeating it, sometimes 10 times, right? It's always important. Going into a press conference alone with just a microphone, even though you have questions and all that, that's what should have been avoided by that cohort of flatterers. But they say he doesn't allow it, that even if they tell him, he doesn't allow it. Of course, what do these people do? Well, I say, let's just tell him nice things. You did very well at the press conference, Florentino. Well, that's how it started. I'm going to go over the things he said here, but first we have to remember that he went to the worst place. I mentioned in the previous video that you can't say there's a part of the press that's really bad and all that. The good press, or the press where you feel comfortable, turns out to be the place where there has been media mistreatment of your best football player, the one who gave you 2 Champions Leagues, as Florentino reminded us today, Vinicius. And not only that, according to Iñaki Angulo, EI spies in Brazil, and it's something that went to court and was withdrawn. Pedrerol's silence means consent. They had, according to them, and allegedly, but I believe it, threatened Vinicius and had blackmailed him. He threatened to publish a video. Do you remember? Okay. Well, all of that was done by El Chiringuito inside La Sexta, but since Ferreras is there, well, that's his free pass. Because if not, I don't think Pedrerol would have gotten as close to Florentino as he always has if it weren't for Ferreras, no. You can kind of understand it that way, but the president at the time had to distance himself from those people after what they did to his player. For a long time, the franchise player has been Vinicius, and he's been one of the most important, and a kid who didn't deserve the treatment he got there. But curiously and surprisingly, Florentino still chooses him, not only to present the Super League, but also to go today and answer questions. But anyway, let's see. He says about the sports side that today he started to stand up for himself and said, my Champions League titles, for some people, it's not enough, that we win so many Champions Leagues. And I think Florentino is wrong about that. People aren't complaining. They recognize Florentino's and Real Madrid's Champions League titles. We keep repeating it. Even the biggest critics do. The real fools are those who say, you stole the first 5. Let's leave the fools out of it today. Many non-Real Madrid fans say, those bastards have 15 Champions Leagues and 6 in 10 years, etc. It's not about that. It's about those two unfortunate things which people ask about, but he won't answer. Today he mentioned the sports side, which we'll discuss now. At least he got him to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, basically, you're basically basing this on the orchestrated campaign against him by the press and on journalists wanting to influence Madrid. And he also said, word for word, journalists asked me to sign one player to sign another. Damn, that's strange, isn't it? That's really weird. Man, are there journalists against Madrid? Yes. Have we said it a million times? Yes, we have. Is it today like it was in the year 2000 or in the first decade of the 2000s from 2000 to 2010? No. Yesterday, he talked about Relaño and Segurola, with all due respect to Relaño and Segurola. People who don't really matter much anymore. They have no influence at all. Sorry. The way the media is today, combined with social media, has nothing to do with how it was years ago. Florentino lives in that world. He's a very visionary guy and has been ahead of his time in many things. But in this, he's living in the past. You can't go on like that. The fact that it bothers you that journalists say things about Real Madrid like Pedrerol said, and I think Pedrerol was right there. But you, with everything you've achieved and who you are and the club you preside over, do four journalists saying things really bother you? They just make things up. What does it matter? Madrid shouldn't care. But it's clear that's not why Florentino does it. He does it because then it happens to him. Escapa, he keeps saying, I call elections because of the instability caused by some journalists. But he's very contradictory there, because then he goes and says that thing about behind and in front is exact words because it's not very clear. Florentino honestly says, and an electric company, and I don't know what else. We've had to figure all that out in the last few hours. What's going on with that electric company? Why is Iberdrola involved? I found out, I didn't know before, that the guy from Iberdrola, Florentino once tried to make a takeover bid with ACS and it didn't work out. And now this guy holds a grudge against him. And it turns out that this guy's son-in-law would be the second in command with Enrique Riquelme and them. And are they already making moves to run for the Real Madrid elections? And that's why Florentino's bringing them forward. He tells us, the members, that they're doing it for us. It's not that I'm doing this for you. With this instability, he always talks to me like this, with this instability, I'm giving the club's owners a say, you know? We members own the club, right? Florentino steps in, so the other guy doesn't have time. But today, Enrique Riquelme has written a letter to Florentino, an open letter. We'll go over that now. He didn't want to say his name and only mentions an electric company, something like that. Yesterday at the press conference, he mentioned a couple of people, these young people. Well, it's Enrique Riquelme and the one who would go second with him, whose name I can't remember right now. The position he has, in my case, he's a young guy too, like him, and with a lot of money and all that, who is the son-in-law of the Iberdrola guy. So is something happening behind the scenes? And watch out, they're even saying that PSOE and Pedro Sanchez could also be involved. I mean, so look, there are people telling me that I'm now with Enrique Riquelme and all that. And so some people think that because we're criticizing Florentino's show and comments, we must support it. Honestly, if you ever see me backing anything PSOE does, just that's when you know it's hopeless. But anyway, hey, they're saying this. It's unbelievable. But all this Game of Thrones stuff, I have to admit that I'm just finding out about it now. I'm just finding out now. And I'll tell you something else. Some people might start to see Enrique Riquelme, this guy, with a bit of, oh, look, this young guy, this young rich guy and all that. That creates a lot of envy in Spain, and it's always been that way. Spain is wonderful with great people, but also very envious. Envy is the national sport. So they'll see him like that and the other guy too. Well, what was Florentino when he arrived at Madrid? What was he? Besides, what did Florentino do when he arrived at Madrid? Well, he won over people from the media, of course. He did what these guys will do if they want to be president of Real Madrid at some point, become powerful. And with his influence and with his money, of course, that's the first thing you need to have, money. So do the same thing Florentino did back in the day, which doesn't bother Florentino. And that thing about sugarcoating it by saying it's just some journalists, no, this is because you've sensed a movement coming from behind from people who are also prepared. And do you feel strong? Because another thing about Florentino, I said before that he's not as senile as some people say. He's got a lot of energy, the guy, he's got a lot of energy. And he says, no, I'm still here and all that. And he's doing it because of that. He's doing it because of that. The letter from Enrique Riquelme came out today before the interview. And it says basically it's long. But it says, I would like to express our full willingness to engage in joint dialogue in the coming days and to agree on a broader process that allows and encourages the real participation of members and Madrid fans in its future. The letter begins by addressing Florentino. In this way, allow me to express to you, before any other consideration, my most sincere respect and gratitude for everything you have meant to Real Madrid over these past decades. Under your leadership, Real Madrid has won unforgettable titles. I don't know the guy, sorry. Honestly, for him to say no, you want it to be him, but I don't want anyone. I'm only judging based on what I see from Florentino since I haven't even heard him speak. Once in an interview on Cope in 2021, he said some nonsense like that he didn't want Zidane and so on. I mean, we all say nonsense sometimes. But here, you can't address Florentino with more respect. I mean, he couldn't have done it better in that sense in this letter, right? But then maybe this guy comes in and he's a disaster. We just don't know. The thing is, he's asking for more time because he says, for example, exemplary conduct, elegance, respect for rivals, excellence, unity, and the drive to remain the global sports benchmark. I mean, he makes it to the end. He makes it to the end. Well, to try to convey to him the fact that Madrid deserves an electoral process with more time so that there can be one. Well, if there's any opposition to Florentino, they should be able to prepare, but that's absolutely normal. Well, Florentino's response to this was, well, when I arrived in 2000, I didn't have time. Elections were called, and it's true, and here we have to agree with Florentino. Just imagine, Madrid won their 8th European Cup. I was there in Paris in May of 2000. Lorenzo Sanz, confident of an easy win, called the elections about 10 days later. No, I don't want to be wrong, but with very little time, and Florentino had to react very quickly. That's true. That's true. Well, he's asking for the same thing for this one. He says, are you like me? Careful, if you say that here, Florentino seems very smart to me. Well, I've never said he isn't, right? He says, want to be like me? Then do what I did in 2000, right? I think Latigo Serrano said that somewhere. That if this man showed up with a club and a big signing, like a flagship player and all that, there could have been a split. How is this man supposed to have enough time? I think this will be announced tomorrow or the next day. A 10-day period opens to formalize the candidacies, and then the electoral campaign lasts 15 days, and then it's off to the races. Well, of course, this man says he won't make it. And so Florentino, what he's going to do is that if this man doesn't make it, although in that letter he says he has the money, he says he's been a member for a long time and so on, obviously of age, and I have the money, but I need more time. Okay, well, of course, if this man doesn't make it and it was Florentino, you see, no one else has come forward, no one is ready, so we continue. I mean, it's a move. Let's see. I mean, the press conference was a disaster in terms of communication, all of this, even today's interview and so on. But it's a move in that sense, well, a very good one by Florentino, but it doesn't fool us. He's not doing this for us. For those journalists who say they don't want to take away the assets from Real Madrid's members, give me a break. What really pisses me off is being treated like I'm stupid. I get Florentino's brilliance, but I don't like being treated like I'm dumb. Why? Among other things, and this is the most outrageous one for me, the Negreira case. Pedrerol says Barca is going to sue him. Are you worried and all that? He asked him. No, they'd be right to do that, says Florentino. He doesn't want a war. Okay, fine. About Negreira. Then he goes on to say about Negreira. There are many things I absolutely agree with. Well, I'll start with those and then I'll go to the bad things, he says. They're not reports and the coaches weren't aware of them and all that stuff. Well, what we've been saying on this channel and others for a long time, and we've been talking about and fighting for, it's true that Real Madrid television too, which in the end represents the club, right? Well, he says, he has stated that the dossier will be in UEFA's hands next week, and it has 500 pages. He already told Cheferin, who said to go ahead and present it, and understands him completely, that this year, Madrid has lost a total of between 16 and 18 points due to refereeing errors. That it's a disgrace, all of this. Okay, it's a disgrace that the league, which has joined the criminal case, then they show up and don't even ask. Of course, it's good that Florentino says that today he was much more clear-headed about it than yesterday, that the president of the CTA says we should just forget about this and just let it go. What is that? I agree with Florentino. We've been speaking out about this for a long time, and that a judge wrote in his own handwriting in some court documents. In this phase of the investigation, Judge Aguirre, the previous one, called it systemic corruption. Up to that point, everything's perfect. Now, where Florentino can't fool us is when he says, well, look, he says, how are the relations with Barca? Pedrerol says, and Florentino says, they're broken, and the phrase is, wait, I have it here. The phrase he said, the phrase Florentino said is, the relationship with Barcelona is broken. Because when I found out about the Negreira thing, and that wasn't long ago, about 3 years and 3 months or 4, and that wasn't long ago, I said, this can't be, well, so the scandal broke out in February of 23, and in November of 24, Florentino Pérez says this.
Barca and Madrid have to help each other. I say this with complete sincerity.
Barca and Madrid have to help each other. What do you want me to say? Listen, says Florentino, the relationship is broken because when I found out about this, and it wasn't long ago, I said, this can't be, of course, damn. He found out in February 2023. This is November 2024. And for anyone who doubts it, it's November 2024. Let them see the number 15 there from the Champions League. The 15th had already been won in June 1st, 2024. When was it that we won the last one? June 12th? Well, so it had already been achieved. This is November 2024 at that assembly. He says it a year and a half after finding out and getting really upset. Of course, look, Florentino, we've said it on this channel, right? You can't fool us here, man. But it really pisses me off when they take me for an idiot. I mean, how? And then those who applaud everything Florentino does, because there are people who applaud everything for one person and nothing for someone else. I mean, they don't see any nuance in life. Do they applaud this too? Let's see how they explain this. Let's see how they explain this. This is unexplainable. And Madrid has wasted precious time because we were in bed with Laporta over the Super League, but precious time, Barca would already be sanctioned if Madrid had gotten their act together on day one. On day one, it can't be. Judge Aguirre's comment on systemic corruption and the civil guards report can't just be dismissed by saying, oh, it didn't come out in February 2023. That's not the case. But listen, we've been dealing with this for at least 2 years now, and it hasn't even been 2 years since Florentino said these words. By then, if I remember correctly, the civil guards report was already known, and even if the civil guards report wasn't known, a lot of things were already known. At that point, no one is fooled. He said some positive things, so let's move on to sports. Regarding the Super League, he says that UEFA is now very open to it and that they are doing things that they were already asking for with the Super League. Will concerts return? The court announced today that Madrid has no involvement or criminal responsibility, which makes us very happy. And now let's move on to sports. Well, before sports, he had a couple of slip-ups there, he said. Last year, we won the Club World Cup. We won the Intercontinental, not the Club World Cup. Well, about the issue of sexism, everything gets blown out of proportion. And here I kind of agree with Florentino because it's true that there are certain things he needs to be careful about saying and so on. About what they say regarding Lola Hernandez, the girl from Fox, whom I also know, by the way, and she's lovely, that he treated her in a sexist way. I don't think so. Regarding the ABC journalist Florentino mentioned, he noted she doesn't cover sports and isn't sure if she knows soccer, but insisted it wasn't because she's a woman. Honestly, we can forgive Florentino for that. He's from a different era. But I don't think Florentino is a sexist person, nor xenophobic, nor racist. They haven't commented on that, but it's also been heard because of the issue with the South American Mexican accent of Enrique Riquelme, whom I insist he hasn't named. He hasn't named him. He just said, hey, if you can, like we said before, right? If you want to run, I did it in 2 weeks and I did it quickly. And finally, the sports part. Look, he talked about Xabi Alonso because Pedrerol asked him directly, which is appreciated. Xavi, if he was lucky, I don't know. He says no. He actually defended Xavi here. He says we didn't have a preseason because of the Club World Cup. And he tells you, let's see, Dina. Florentino, I mean, you're excusing him. So why did you fire him? Why did you fire him? Why didn't you understand that because of the Club World Cup, we didn't get a preseason? He mentioned the injuries too, which really took a toll on us. No shit. And why don't you give the coach one more chance? And no, and not having made it because Florentino thought that if he brought in Pintus and another coach to shake things up a bit, it would go well for him, right? In other cases, Florentino didn't say this since Madrid had succeeded with those solutions before, but honestly, the sports management was terrible. He then says there's a sports management team, not him, handling it. He says he doesn't decide, that he doesn't spoil the players, and that he doesn't. All claims about his relationship with the squad are false. He doesn't even talk to Mbappe. So does that mean he doesn't talk to the other players either? That sometimes when he goes to training and sees them for a moment, well, then he talks, but that's it. and about them being spoiled. He says, did you spoil them like that time? He says, no, no, no. He says, well, and that time it didn't happen. He says, I don't know why I said that. In 2006, Florentino said that thing about the players being spoiled in that press conference where he said he was leaving. Here he says he left in 2006 due to too much work. Flo and Pedrerol react, asking if they're just learning this now. He confirms, yes, he left because of too much work. Okay. Here's another quote from Florentino we missed. The referee disrupted us and ruined a great semifinal due to the Champions League issue. He took it from us and disturbed us, but he also deprived us of that beautiful semifinal. And that he doesn't get involved in the sporting department allow us to doubt that it's what we say, don't take us for fools. Sorry, Florentino has also coughed 2 or 3 times. And that he likes Mourinho a lot. Mourinho is signed. I mean, if Florentino stays, wins the elections, or no one else runs, and so on, Mourinho is signed. And they have a hunch about who the mole is. Didn't he say it like that? Do they know who leaked this from inside the locker room and all that? No, we have a hunch. Anyway, when he asked if there were a lot of fights at Madrid, I mean, these fights about that have happened this year, he says, no, there have always been fights here and all that. Okay, fine. But have there been fights about 500,000 fines for each one? Have there been any, or did Pedrerol not tell him? But we all wonder about it, because why does he downplay these fights if Madrid has fined each of them 500,000, 1 million in total? Let bygones be bygones here? No, come on. If the president of the CTA says let bygones be bygones about the Negreira case, that's much more serious. Well, your fans are telling you that you can't just say let bygones be bygones, or that one thing is important. No, you can't downplay it. Well, that's it. That's more or less the summary I've made of this speech by Florentino and what I think, my reflection. And that's it. Those of you who have made it this far, I really appreciate it, because these are tough days. Yesterday, I lost 100. I had it around here. Wait, I'll tell you the exact number, because today I've probably lost who knows how many as well. Yesterday, I lost 130 subscribers, and today I've probably lost another 50 or so. Well, what can we do? That's just how it is. Sometimes you have to pay for it too. To be yourself, to be free, right? And something that's terrible in today's society is confirmation bias. If you go looking for someone to tell you what you want to hear, and instead they tell you the opposite or something like that, then you get to the truth. Look, as Iker Jimenez says, the lineage of the free, that's exactly it. That's what we have to be in this life. But a lot of people aren't ready. Unfortunately. But well, I just can't see myself any other way. I'm seeing everyone twisting themselves to defend the indefensible, and you just think, come on, please, please. But well, to each their own. Give it a like, please, to counteract. Subscribe to this channel too, to help counteract that. And that's it. Comment, share, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good night. Bye.